What's going on, Badger Nation? Welcome to the PPC Den podcast, the world's first and longest running show all about how to make your Amazon advertising life a little bit easier and a little bit more profitable. My friends, I have Blair Forrest coming on the show today from AMZ Prep, and Blair is the person I talk to try to wrap my head around how does one think about inventory management and 3PL logistics and shipping things all over the world in this crazy world of 2025 that we live in. So I had an incredibly interesting, intellectually stimulating conversation with Blair. I hope you enjoy it. Let's dig in and try to figure out how some big brands are thinking about tariffs and moving inventory around the world. Let's jump in. I feel like number one, incredible sweater that you've got on. It's great material.
It's my homie. You know, in the midst of tariffs, I'm calm, cool, and collected. That's the look I'm going for.
It's great.
Cool as a cucumber.
The lighting is very calm that I see. The lighting is very calm.
Thank you.
I hear a lot of Amazon chatter. I talk to like 80 Amazon people a month, intimately. And I'm always asking them questions and what's going on? What are you thinking? What are you operating on? I talk to European agencies. I talk to people in Japan. I talk to everybody. And when I talk to a lot of Americans, they're like, I talked to some guy, he sources from Nicaragua. He's like, all my competitors are sourcing from China. They're screwed.
Yeah.
I talk to other people that source from China. They're like, man, I put a big order in a while ago and like, I hope it's like, it just arrived and I'm like, not going to place another order. I'm going to go out of stock on a bunch of stuff and I'm just going to ride it out. Does this come up in your business? Like, is there chatter?
Yeah. Hell yeah, there's chatter. That's all that we're damn doing. It is absolutely chaos in like the logistics world. People are it's just because the lack of like the misinformation too just creates this like echo chamber, and there's already fear and now there's fear mongering, and now you don't know what information's true, and you have like $1 million of goods on the water that's about to hit, and like there's no real clarity. And also, to make it all worse, like it could go away like that, or it could stay 5 years. And you're like, how the hell am I gonna run? I felt for the logistics world. I felt for everyone, but now I feel it for the brands. Like we're talking to a really big merchant, and they sell maybe 100 million a year on Amazon. And they had a bunch of containers on the water. Those old shipments used to cost $5,000 in tariffs. Now they cost $300,000.
No.
And they only make $100,000 from the container in terms of, gross profits. So every item they sell, they're actually losing $3. So they're just going to get rid of it. They told us to just throw it out. They're like, there's nothing, it's too late to set up something or get bonded or these other solutions that are out there. So they're like, just get rid of it. Like, it only costed us $400, but if we sell it, it's going to cost us $900. So say la vie. So it's crazy.
That's wild. I don't even know where to go from there.
So we're working on solutions.
Yeah.
We're working on solutions. I think what we've been figuring out is there's kind of 3 ways that I think we can kind of take this of what we're seeing work, because the challenge will be that what I say today might change from 90 days from now, and I'm not a financial advisor. So brands need to make their own decisions, but I can absolutely give my feedback of what I would do. Right, Michael? I think that's
walk it through.
I think that's entirely fair.
That is very fair.
So there's 3 things brands are doing right now. Number 1 is called FTZ, free trade zone. Number 2 is called bonded. And I would call number 3 the anti-USA approach. And I'll go through that one on the third piece. So number 1, free trade zone. What free trade zone means is that basically think of this, and this is a warehouse solution. So think of free trade zone as basically, it's like international waters. So what this allows you to do is you can import into the USA without paying tariffs on day one. So basically you can import it in. You're technically not in the US, you're in almost like international waters. Our warehouse is kind of in the middle of the ocean, and from a paperwork perspective. And then once we release the goods from the warehouse, then you pay the tariffs. Bonded operates in a very similar way. Bonded is kind of the next. Bonded is the upper echelon. This is the C class of the logistics world. Very hard to get, very expensive right now. But bonded does something very, very similar in terms of you don't pay tariffs on day one. You pay tariffs when the shipment actually leaves the warehouse. Now, here's the difference between the two of them. Free trade zone, what happens is that when you want to release it, you're tied into that tariff rate at the time you import it in. So, for example, right now it's 145. If you decide to import that shipment in at 145, you're stuck. It's like a fixed mortgage. You're married and you can't change it. Now, if that tariff goes up, you look like an absolute hero. If that tariff goes down, it's going to be a long weekend. It's going to be a very long weekend. Mont Tremblant might have to get canceled, unfortunately. So you're locked to the tariff. Now, a lot of warehouses can get free trade zone. It's not that expensive, relativity. I think it's around 6 figures to get it, but it's easier to get than bonded. Bonded's very difficult. If you don't have it set up, it will take a while. Free trade zone, some warehouses are getting it in like 3 to 6 months. Again, people need it tomorrow, but we planned it a while back. Bonded, what's a little bit different about bonded, Michael, is that when you do bonded, when you import the shipment out of the warehouse, because now you're almost like you're in international waters with the warehouse, it's all bonded. When you want to send it out of the warehouse to Amazon or your retail or anywhere else, you pay the tariff based off the current rate, which is very powerful, right? Because now if the tariff goes down, now your tariff goes down with it. You're not locked. So FTZ, it's a locked rate. Bonded is a variable rate. Now, some factors there, though, is that with bonded, you can't do e-commerce, right? You can't do D2C orders. And the reason for that as a merchant is that bonded requires it's really expensive to release a shipment. It's called like a release of goods, but it usually costs like $100 something. So when it's an Amazon shipment, it's fine because you might be sending 50 boxes to Amazon or whatever it is. But with D2C, it might only be a $20 order or $30 order. It'll cost $100 plus someone to fulfill it, plus someone to ship it. It's not feasible. Free trade zone, you're allowed to, because you can actually send it like every week to brokerage. So we'll take a whole week of Michael's orders and then we'll broker it at the end of the week and then we'll release it. So the fees are a little bit more feasible. The last thing I would say is that bonded is very, very, very expensive. We're seeing bonded rates for storage $40 to $80 at the moment for bonded, which is, nationwide average, maybe like $20 a pallet position. Now it's 45 to 80. It's very expensive, but there's also supply demand. And now, brands need it. They don't have a choice. And so these don't get rid of tariffs, right? But they delay the pain of the tariff. That's all.
Right. I was just going to say, these are words that I'm hearing for the first time, and potentially, some people listening are also hearing it for the first time. So it just seems like a lot of you get to attempt to time when you're paying the tariff, when the time of the duty comes in, you get to potentially defer it into the future or get it time it to get to an FTZ at a time where it's lower.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of warehouses have FTZ. So a merchant might be looking for a free trade zone warehouse. A lot of warehouses have it, but it's locked. So amazing. You can delay the tariff. Beautiful. So that might help you for the meantime, but just know that it's still, it's going to be 145. So if your product is selling really quickly, whatever, right? Like if you move it to bonded, you're almost betting on the stock market, right? You're betting that it's going to go down in the future. If you either sell it fast, which means that you're not waiting a long time, right? So then it might free trade zone's fine, amazing. If you're selling it in a month, you kind of get net 30 terms on that tariff, which is pretty damn good. And FTZ is usually not expensive for the most part. Bonded, it's like setting up the White House. Very challenging. It only makes sense for a select number of merchants, but it's key to know the difference. Now, I'll throw one more curveball, is that what we're actually seeing with a lot of our larger merchants is that there's a third option, which is starting to come into play now, is routing that inventory that was going to go to California, hypothetically. Now you're going to route it to either Mexico or you're going to route it to Canada. The reason for that is that it almost operates like bonded, right? Because you can, again, we're just trying to wait it out. right? We're just trying to limit the pain on day one. That's all that we're trying to answer for. And maybe it goes down. If it doesn't, at least you delayed the pain of how much you have to pay. And you don't got to pay the whole thing up front. You pay a little bit just over time, piecemeal the whole tariff fee out. Is that you route it to Vancouver or you route it to Mexico. You bulk store it there. You will need to pay the tariff getting into one of those countries, but it is a fraction of the cost, a fraction, and you'll get that money back, which I can explain afterwards. But you'll route it to one of those two countries. You'll hold it there. And Canada, Mexico, it's usually cheaper storage. Mexico is even cheaper, but there's other complications with Mexico. We've all seen cartels. We can make those decisions. Or you do Canada, c'est la vie, bulk stored accordingly, hold in those places, and then as needed, feed it to Amazon FBA US from up or from down, right? That's the idea. So you still have to pay tariffs. It's not like you pay the China tariff. So it's not like you avoid it by going to Canada, but you don't pay it on day one. You might pay it on day 30, right? And there's a chance that maybe it's 6 months worth of goods, the container. If it is, maybe by then the tariff drops, right? That's also the instance. So then you're waiting it out. You don't have to deal with bonded and setting it up. And no one's going to give you bonded unless you do a lot of volume. That's what we've seen. And it's really expensive. And I think what the biggest takeaway, Michael, from a lot of this is that people are looking international. Even though, it's only 10% of your revenue, your margin, so your US margin might have been 15% gross. Now it's 3%. But it's big. It's a big pie. Instead, your Canada, Mexico, right? Those are now 25% margins, but it's only 10% of revenue. So it's a lot smaller revenue, but the overall pie within that is a little bit bigger because you don't have to pay for the tariffs and the costing and there's less market, so on and so forth. So now brands are starting to think, okay, can we kill two birds with one stone? Can we limit the pain from the tariff? But then also, can we use that to open up new markets? Can we then enable Canada, enable Mexico? So people are trying to either use bonded and FTZ if they need to get it to the US, or they want to wait from an external country. That might be UK, it might be Mexico, it might be Canada. Wait it out, and then as needed, they're going to feed to the US.
If I may, this reminds me a lot of when in 2020, when COVID first happened, and I think it was something like FBA was shut down or something for some short period of time. And everyone with FBM was able to leapfrog, and the Amazon algorithm actually changed. And if whatever the set FBA ship time was, if you were able to have a fast, any FBM was being preferred over FBA, which is not generally how the algorithm works on Amazon. And it was just the e-commerce brands that were able to do that, they had that in their back pocket. It's okay, we're just going to ramp up FBM and get this done, seemed to be incredibly benefited by that, by having that option. So it almost seems like this is optionality is incredibly powerful to be able to have some of these options, like you mentioned, to sort of pull out in your back pocket when the time is right. Seems like it is this story yet again, that if you're going to be shipping things and importing things, it's helpful to have options available to you. That's sort of a lesson that I'm hearing.
And I think the only other thing that's happening is that people are deferring to other countries for manufacturing. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out local manufacturing in the US. It's going to be very challenging. Very, very, very challenging.
I mean, there's so many problems with that. One of my clients that does manufacture in China, they're like, man, I've looked everywhere in the US for years. And I just can't get the thing made the way that I want it made, the way that it there's only a few factories that did the thing the way that with some special thing that they had. It's a lot of tooling to get stuff set up to actually make the thing in a new spot. So it's really fascinating. So yeah, and what is your involvement? You're actually, I think you mentioned you were setting up your own FTZ zone,
so we have one bonded warehouse. We have 2 FTZ, free trade zone agreement warehouses. And then naturally we have Canada. We have stayed away from Mexico. We'll ship to Mexico. It's a very complicated economy. So we've just parked that strategy. So we've bonded, we have FTZ, and we have Canada. So we see all 3 of them. So we're kind of getting the whole, hit of the swaps. It's not bonded isn't expensive because we're just, hiking the price. There's just a bunch of, one, you only have so much space inside the warehouse. And then two, the compliance around it is just a nightmare. There's a lot of, checks and balances you need to do to keep up with a bonded facility. And every order needs a brokerage, basically. Like it's a big part of work. But yeah, so we're managing it. And I think honestly it's more about, we're just trying to figure out what's best for the merchant. I do think my core prediction that this is going to go away before the end of the year. So we're seeing some of the best brands just not do anything.
I see that is probably the biggest action that I'm seeing, which is just like, they're just going to pay the tariff and deal with it.
Like no inaction is action, I think, in this instance. And sometimes waiting is actually maybe the best answer instead of scrambling and rebuilding your supply chain. And, you have to be able to sustain it. Some people can't sustain it. But again, I do feel that even that is short-term pain. It sucks. It absolutely sucks. But also remember, the whole market is doing this. So it's not like you're the only, mattress brand or kid's toy that's getting hit with this. Like, everyone's gonna have to pay it, right? Do you have the cash flow to maintain it? That's what you have to be able to figure out. But I do think like the two easiest wins is free trade zone, amazing, or route it to another country like Canada, just because it's English speaking. You could set up Canada in a week or two. Like if you're not like food or cosmetics, it's pretty low lift for the most part, and you can almost just wait it out. And also, our currency sucks at the moment because, good old Canadians just trying to figure things out. And so some people are leveraging that to be like, it's just cheaper storage up here, and Vancouver and Toronto, and we have just a big ass country that we can store things in. So depends on the merchant, but there's options. There's just not many, unfortunately. But we are seeing a lot more focus towards Vietnam and so forth in terms of changing their supply chain and just switching up your manufacturing structure. Or the last thing I would suggest is that depending on the size of you, so we work with a brokerage firm, and what they do is it's called an HS audit. So basically what they'll do is they'll check every single one of your HS codes, and they'll go through them and basically say, okay, well, this blue water bottle is flagged at 112. If you put it as pink, it flagged as, 105, hypothetically. And it's not that they're trying to beat around the bush, but sometimes also your manufacturer mislabeled the HS code.
Because even something as simple as that, the way that products are classified varies, like has a big impact.
Sometimes there's like an ingredient list. And because there was that one piece of wood, maybe you have like a charcuterie board and the type of wood that's in there makes it flagged as this, or if it's flagged as electronic. And sometimes there's no way to get around it. Sometimes people are taking gray approaches, or the manufacturer just mislabeled it. We see that happen like way more often. And it's just because people are labeling HS codes, millions of them every day, right? Like, so it happens. And now people are like, okay, a couple percentage points could be, $10,000, $100,000. So it's an option. Usually the brokerage firms will probably charge for it. But again, whatever, $500 or $1,000 to know that your tariff could go down 10%, pick your heart.
This is wild.
The fun world of it, Mike. That's the fun world.
So has your like email inbox just been being flooded over the last few weeks, few months?
Yeah, it's more of just more of like a question mark more than anything. It's just like there's just no clarity. And you've probably seen my LinkedIn. Like I'm finally getting some hate now on LinkedIn, which is pretty cool. And it's just because like people are in disagreement. There's no real truth. Everyone's kind of just making an assumptions, and that might change. And then he could say one thing, and then someone could say, and there's just no clarity on it. So I think that's the challenging part, is like figuring out what's the whole truth behind this whole thing. But yeah.
I just interviewed one of my clients. He sells like organic fertilizers that he started the business in his garage, like with it's like fertilizer. So it's like fish water and like this, and like put it together and you get the stuff that grows plants. And I was like, wow, number one, that's awesome. It's like a true success story. He's like a big successful brand now. And then also in my head, I'm just like, damn, like that means you're just making it here. Like you don't have to deal with any of this. And I'm like, wow, what a relief.
I think local manufacturing will be like the biggest opportunity the next 18 months. Like people that can crack in and somehow get the unit economics to work. Like
right.
Local manufacturers are gonna explode. I'm gonna say I see a bunch of private equity coming. Like I see that because you're gonna have to, and It's just not an option. Like, man, fertilizer here, or like I see like some CPG brands, or I'm talking like a few supplement brands, and like, yeah, we manufacture, you know, 20 minutes away from here, and I'm like, boy, you got it.
Got it made in the shade. So you're fighting with people on LinkedIn. What's the last thing you fought about that was not work related? What's the last disagreement you had?
You know what? What was one of the last things? It's all work related. It's all work related. I made a damn Amazon image, and the guy was, people just go at me now, I think. And I'm actually a big fan of it. I love it. I think it just kind of stirs up a good conversation.
Gets the engagement rate up, dude. One of the, you know what? There's some marketers out there. This dude was doing, he had like a fitness brand, and he would intentionally post memes and videos that he knew would trigger people. So it's like, like the classic, we were talking about barbells and such earlier, like the CrossFit style pull-up where you kip or you kick your legs up to do the pull-up, and like with like a caption of like, this is the true way to do a pull-up just to get people triggered.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or like, yes.
You know what? And I would say some of the things I'm predicting that are going to happen is, if we're just talking Amazon tactical, because I know that's a big part of the audience, tactical Amazon predictions happening for 2025. I think one is that West Coast is going to get killed again for all inbound. I'm already seeing it from some of the inbounds that we're seeing, and it's not even like mid Q2. I think AWD will perform a little better than last year, because last year was a absolute mess, but I think they've made some improvements. It's not going to be, 8 weeks, but I don't think it's going to be full functioning. And I think brands at AWD are going to be at a bit of exposure. I think brands not doing East Coast potential splits, they're going to be in trouble if they're not thinking about that and are fully West Coast, because I think some DCs are going to get shut down.
Splitting in generally is a good idea, as I understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have to do a whole episode on it, because there's so much you can talk about. It's so good. The splitting is required so that you avoid the national cross docks, right? Because that's where the bottlenecks are going to happen. They happened last year. They happen again, because the nationals go to the regionals, and then the regionals go to the actual FCs. So you have to avoid that key congestion point, because as more trucks are going there, it's just a cross-dock of goods, right? So then there's just lineups of trucks, and that's what caused this whole issue last year. And I think it's going to happen again this year. So you have to split. You might find some economics from sending to one location, but that time to check in is going to be, it is like our entire metric performance as a fulfillment partner now have changed to be all about check-in times. So it's not like a year ago, our OTIF and our like SLA performance was just about what happens in the warehouse. Now it's about check-in time. And we review that every week across, hundreds and hundreds of these merchants, our check-in time to Amazon, because that is more impactful, and that's going to take way more time than us processing an order. And if we can improve that 12% from the inbound to Amazon, that will do way more for them than the, 24-hour versus 48 hours. So now we're getting this like obsession around inbound transit times until check-ins, and what DCs are best performing, which ones aren't, which one's the route to, cross consolidation of brands, floor loading versus LTL loading. And we're geeking out. It's a whole science on its own. It's very cool.
I mean, there's so much talk about like PPC optimization, but it's like everything can be optimized to that degree. I'm thinking of the book about McDonald's, how they got started and how they're timing absolutely everything, and they're trying to standardize it across all the locations, like that kind of thing. It's like very fascinating. So that's amazing. So AWD, you mentioned inventory splitting locations. You mentioned an amazing amount of stuff here.
That's all my predictions. I think international will be big. I think West Coast is going to get killed. I think AWD is in trouble. And I think that tariffs will start to limit before the end of the year. And I think I need to go back to this at the end of the year with a nice little reflection video with you to see how we land, because I think that's what's going to matter. But I am seeing that merchants are just thinking about it all differently. I think this is all this did. Their whole feathers got ruffled because of this. I also like being kept on my toes a little bit. You know what I mean? Call it a toxic relationship, Michael. I kind of like it. It keeps me honest.
I'll say that in general. Like, I feel like everyone who works in this sort of industry of like e-commerce and such, it's always a battle. Like, it's not so simple. Like, whether it be Amazon doing something strange or a government doing something strange, or there's just like there's always new, different obstacles to wrestle with. And I think that if you're of the kind of mind that enjoys these things, like, to me, it's like the best feeling. I've been on a kick of like non-converting ad spend for a while.
Ooh.
And only because like the chances of like high-fiving at the end of it with the customer is incredibly high, because it's like you get to switch non-converting spend to converting spend. Like, there's some stuff that goes on there. So I love like once you can actually do something of value for someone, it is incredibly energizing.
What are your predictions, Michael, for the rest of the year?
It's really hard to know. Like, on one hand, for me and my perspectives, on the day-to-day, thinking about putting one foot in front of the other, of just like, well, what is it that people are saying to me today, and like, what can we do for them? So that's why I have been on the non-converting spend kick. I think like in the world of Amazon marketing, there's been a lot of like hype and hullabaloo about a lot of like new stuff. And I always say like, there's no change that Amazon would ever make unless they have already determined that it will make them more money at the end of it. Like, not you, seller, but Amazon. So pushing back against a lot of that, like there was someone that I talked to a couple of weeks ago that was like, I was like, look at this keyword, it spent so much money without a sale. And they're like, yeah, but what if like, when I look at different attribution models, what if that keyword that spent $80 and spend without an order, maybe it had like a downstream click somewhere? And I'm like, bro, it's still dollars out the door. Like, fighting back against that is something that I think is very important for people to do. Like, just having really good discipline and budgetary constraints. And from the marketing perspective, I think any marketer, because I mean, that's who I am, right? So like from a marketing perspective, the role of marketing getting bigger, in the sense of like, I think this is true for most agencies and freelancers and such, where it's like just optimizing one traffic channel is not enough, and perhaps hasn't been in a while, where like you really need to become like, in many ways, like business optimizers. So like looking at all of the 1-step, 2-step, 3-step things that influence marketing performance, I think is going to become more and more important for agencies to do. So like, what impacts ranking? Okay, well, product imagery. Okay, that's great. And then like you start to tease that out, and you begin to get into like product iterations of like, hey, this competitor is doing this thing. Like, how do we bob and weave beyond that? So that sort of product strategy, I think, will become more and more important for marketers.
Well, and look, Amazon's not going to solve it. I've learned that about almost everything. They'll solve it for themselves, but they're not going to solve it for the rest of us. So it's on someone like you and I to do it, because they won't.
Yeah. I'm also seeing a lot of people be interested in off Amazon as well. Like,
Interesting.
maybe dusting off their off Amazon strategy, or trying to ramp it up, or think about like, hey, like, I think this is a perfect time to revisit why our Shopify sales are at this level, but our Amazon sales are at this level. Like, what can we do to maybe right the ship a little bit more? I'm seeing a lot more people have those conversations.
What's the biggest problem you're going to solve this year, like with what you guys are doing?
Yeah. Right now, marketplace analytics, and tied to profitability, tied to advertising performance. So I think it's never really well defined. Like, if you spend more on advertising, what does that actually do for you? And generally the consensus is like, oh, like that will boost my overall market share. That will boost my organic or something. But then like, what does that do to the profitability? So there's this like a 3-body problem of ad spend, organic sales, profitability, that I want to better quantify to people. That's what I'm thinking about in our software.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, Blair, I thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think this was a good high energy stream of consciousness.
Thanks, Mike.
I mean, stream of consciousness, I mean, you've obviously thought about these things, but I think it's just like listening to you talk about these things it's spurring a lot of future things I want to look up as well.
No, thanks, Mike. I think this one's short and sweet too. We went through FTZ, we went through bonded, we went through Canadian versus Mexico options, we went through some predictions. I think we went through high growth with what you guys are building. I think this was good. You know, I think it all swings at bat. I appreciate you guys always inviting me on. These are a blast. You know, the amount of people that still say they found me from this is like wild. I get it probably once a week. My sales guys say all the time. That
Come on.
I swear to you. Someone, I don't hear all of them, but the sales guys also do too, that they see it from what you guys are. Like
Wow.
it's serious. We have like a really big customer. I'll send you the name of them.
Wow.
And he was like, I found you from this. And it was like incredible. And he buzzes about me. And he's like, I listen to all of them. You need to be doing more of them. And I'm like, okay. I was like,
Get out. That's why I'm constantly impressed that there are smart, successful people listening to me ramble sometimes.
Just rant. And I say stuff online and I'm like, oh shit, you saw that? I was like, you heard that? I was like, oh boy.
It's great. That's why I take it seriously. That's why, like, you know, I know I'm joking around, but like, I think it's important work.
It's a big medium. It's a big medium. Yeah. It's not like, it's not some, couple dozen people listening anymore. There's thousands of people that are like waiting for you to give your thoughts. So it's cool to see. It'd be cool one time as we do a few more of these, is like as we both grow older too, we can like like the black and white, where like the slow ambient music and like our first one and how energetic we were, and over the years as we've evolved, and we'll hold some kids in the hands, and it's it'll be funny to see.
For real, man. Well, hey, have a good one up there.
Oh,
I can't wait to visit without a passport. It's gonna be great.
Dude, wishing you the best. Let me know when you're in Lunch from Blanc, yeah?
All right, man, have a good one.
All right, bro. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
I've launched campaigns and picked keywords. I've got my bit, set placements too, and bad mistakes.